meeting is a response. It's not actually an action or a happening. It's not coming from somewhere that's trying to make something happen. It's a response to an energy which says or claims that this happening is knowable, that this happening is real, that this happening is happening to me. And the response to that claim, to that experience, to that knowing is, no, it's not. Full stop. So that claim, that experience that this is really happening or happening to me, the message says that's illusory. So what is this? Well, you can't say. It can't be said. There is no position outside of everything to say what everything is. There's not even a thing called everything. So the description, the best that can be done, is well, it sounds like a paradox. It sounds like nonsense. So this will use words like absolute, infinite, unknowable, aliveness. Words that can't actually be conceived of. So I guess you could say in another way, is this what's being shared, or the message, isn't for you. If you've come looking for something, you're going to be very disappointed. It's actually, in the end, you could say it's really good news. Because there's nothing to find, there's nothing to lose, nothing's really happened, nothing's gone wrong, nothing will ever go right. There's simply what arises. It's free, intentionless, needless fulfillment arising. And that includes everything. That includes the experience or the knowing of which this message is a response to. So there's nothing outside of everything. And what that's pointing to is the positional experiential awareness that says this is happening to me and knows what's going on and what all this means or doesn't mean is illusory. It's illusory in the sense, in the absolute complete sense, that when it stops happening, it never happened. So, it's not happening. It's not happening. There's no process for it to stop happening. There's no need for a particular experience or something to fall away or for there to be a no-me or some sort of insight. That's not what we're talking about here. What we're pointing to is that this arising is completeness arising, wholeness arising, unconditional love arising. That's it, really. That's it. That's the whole of it. It's quite simple. And it's got nothing to do with this. This isn't the carrier of some message. This doesn't have anything special about it. The message, if you like, or the message that this is all there is, or there's only what appears and that it's whole and complete, is being said or spoken or reflected by absolutely everything all the time. There's never a moment or a space or a place where that's not the loudest thing being said. It's got nothing to do with this. Could be written on the wall somewhere. Could just be a pile of dirt. It's all it's saying, all that's being said. The suggestion is, this is wholeness. This is everything. There's nothing else other than what arises. And it's absolutely free without intention, meaning, or purpose.
In which way is it so loud?
In which way? Well, not in that way. It's not a way. I mean, to say it's a way, it would be like, oh, well, you can listen to it over in this corner. The difficulty is that there's nothing that's not saying it. So when there's somebody that arises, or a knowing arises and wants to hear it, it seems to be lost. Because it's looking for something it can have an experience of, or know, or own. It can't be known or owned. It is already everything, including the experience of wanting to know and own it. That's it.
So it's not a dream that things appear to happen, it's the dream that it's perceived as real by something.
I'd say it's the dream that is happening to me, which is the experience of it being real. And the difficulty for the individual, or that experience, is that it's looking for something it can know. And so it wants to know that what was just said is true. Yeah.
It's hopeless.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very small circle that it lives in.
Yeah.
Why do memories exist for what's happening now?
Why do memories, they don't exist for what's happening now, they are what's happening.
Yeah. Do they have no function?
Well, they have an apparent function. It's good to remember where your car is. How to spell your name. But there's no meaning behind that.
There's no good or bad memories.
Well, but there's no good and bad about there being bad memories. There might be unpleasant memories. I can leave a couple. Hearing this message. A pretty rotten memory. Terrifying more than rotten memory.
Yeah. Do they have any physical repercussions for you?
There's nobody here. And I don't know what you mean by physical repercussions.
Tingling in skin?
Well, if a certain thought might come up, there might be an emotion attached to it.
Yeah.
Like I just said, hearing this first time, terror.
Jim.
So that, I guess where we're getting to is there's simply what arises. It's unconnected.
Was it more terrifying to realize that there's no free will, or that there's no self?
Well, that there's no one. It's the same thing. Yeah.
The same thing.
Yeah.
I realized, I recognized a long time ago that there's no free will, but it didn't occur to me that there was no self.
Same thing. What? So you thought that you had the experience of being a self that was trapped in this sort of free will-less sort of experience?
Just never occurred. It never occurred to me. I'd never come across the information that there was no self. And yet it was clearly seen that there's no free will.
Yeah.
And it was clearly seen that it didn't matter whether I believed there was free will or not. Nothing changed.
Totally.
And
Because it had no effect in the first instance.
And that was a paradox that I tried so hard to explain to people, but nobody could see that paradox.
Yeah, surprise.
And so I forgot about it.
All right. Yeah.
Can I ask you about the experience of beauty? Is it
It's
all down to conditioning?
It's not an experience. It's not an experience. For me, what happens is that beauty is recognized or seen. There's a glimpse of beauty, and then it tries to own it. In that distance, it's imaginary. In that imaginary experience, there's a distance into the beauty that's there. When there's no one left, That beauty, no one owns it. No one's trying to grasp it or pull it into themselves because there's no lack. They're trying to add to itself. So beauty is then.
But you can differentiate between beauty and ugliness.
Well, there's nobody here.
Well,
You can't put there's no box for this.
no.
There's only what arises. And what might not be obvious, if there's a knower, is that what arises is what's longed for. There's no separation. There's no need for there to be a distinction between beauty and ugliness or anything else. For this to be what's longed for. It happens to be also all there is.
Yes.
That's really the core of the hopelessness of the search for it. Is what's longed for is what is all there is. And the longing or the seeking is what makes it seem or appear to be not it. It has no effect.
So do you register something?
There's nobody here. No, but
So
there's
there's no
really nobody here.
So
There's nobody there either.
No.
Yeah.
But you don't. There is no registration of something. As
It's not
beautiful.
about what happens. It's that what's happening, first off, is all there is. It's what arises, is wholeness arising. And it's not happening for anyone.
So that judgment, the judgment of beautiful or not beautiful doesn't happen.
Beauty isn't a judgment. Beauty is a response. It's not a judgment. It's not...
Does that response happen?
Yeah. Totally more fully. Because as I described before, when there's a me, as soon as beauty or love or anything else arises, it wants that. It clamps onto it.
It's almost.
And there's almost a subtle recognition that the beauty or the love that arises isn't the fullness of what's there. There's some barrier to it. And that barrier is wanting to know it or own it. There's nobody doing that.
It almost feels like it's a sort of siren, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I feel I get caught.
Yeah.
Because the visual's very important for me.
Yeah. But it's not the visual thing. What happens with me when there's a knower that arises, that the mystery that this isn't lost. It just seems hidden. Seems like it's beyond. It's all beyond. And so there's an effort to go beyond, to find what seems to be now hidden or lost. It's not. It's not. This is beauty. Unconditional love.
Yeah, but it feels like when something registers here as beautiful or not beautiful.
You don't like what I'm saying, do you? Sorry. The differentiation is completely irrelevant. That's only an effort
I realize that.
That's only an effort to overcome the experience that beauty is somehow lost.
No, I think I'm just talking about it because I realise I get caught there, and I do. It feels
You
like
don't get caught. There isn't anybody in there. We're not moving towards beauty.
No, I know that.
The experience that it's separate or that you're caught is beauty appearing as that. There's no way around it. There's no way to get closer. It has nothing to do with any free will or choice that creates a separation. It's an experience that arises out of a contracted energy in the body that says it knows what's happening. Nobody does that. So being able to differentiate or recognize or any of those things has no relevance. All of that assumes there's a real separation and there's some way to overcome it and there's something that could happen to bring about what's longed for. This is already what's longed for.
Yeah, but I think understand. I recognise when you say, I feel like sometimes there's an openness and then I grab onto it.
Yeah.
I know that.
You don't do that. That's just what happens. You don't do anything. There isn't anybody in there. There's a completely impersonal contraction that, or out of which arises a knowing, a knower, an owner, a seeker, that assumes a person, a personal experience. It's not.
But that knower feels very strong in that moment. That's where I feel it the strongest.
There's not a you and the knower. I understand it, I'm not.
No,
But the I, that knower, is convinced it's going to work it out. That it's going to be some part of its own solution. And the only currency that it has is knowing. And so it thinks through knowing, practice, trying, it's going to somehow solve.
But I suppose what happens is the knowing happens.
Apparently. Only apparently.
That's what.
Absolutely.
That's what's found.
Yeah. And then they're trying to differentiate. And they're trying to figure out, how do I get beyond this? Because this is uncomfortable. Something feels like it's missing. And then there's a response. There's just what's happening. The whole thing is valueless.
It's like the search for love covers up love.
Jim, you speak of impersonal contraction.
Yeah, that's it.
So is that in some way then taking ownership of everything?
Yeah, well, the contraction, out of that arises an experience of knowing. You can call that different things. You can say it's the experience of things being real. It's the experience of the position. It's the experience of things being solid. It's the experience of things being substantial, or the experience of things having meaning and purpose. All that's sort of the same thing. And all of that happens completely impersonally.
But in a way that's what we call a me.
The contracted energy of know. Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
The knower. Yeah.
I always get caught there because it's not real.
No, nothing is.
So it just takes the form of an apparent contraction.
Yeah, absolutely. There's an apparent contraction having the illusory experience that what appears can be known.
So the self is no more real than, let's say, the flowers.
It's less real.
Less real.
Yeah. The flowers are apparent. The self is completely unreal.
But while it's apparent, it seems real.
Oh yeah, it does, yeah. It does. And important and special.
So it's an appearance also.
No, it's actually, the differentiation is that this, what is, doesn't change if there's no me. The me can disappear, and there never was a me. Because the experience of this has nothing to do with what this is when there's no me. So the falling away of me leaves this completely untouched. So you could say there never was a me. There's no me. There's no contracted knower that's covering this up. There's only what arises. It's a dream. A dream from which it's trying to wake up from. But it's the same thing. It is the dream and the dreamer. So nobody wakes up. So it's caught in trying to wake up, trying to overcome a separation that isn't already.
It's like the only true illusion.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
kind of equation came to mind. The appearance equals reality minus illusion.
The appearance equals reality minus illusion.
Square.
Maybe I can't get my head around it.
Because the me affects not
But
just...
there's no reality.
Right.
It doesn't have any effect. Only in the dream of itself, which is already not happening, does it apparently have a dream effect. It doesn't have any effect.
But it infuses...
That's the reason there's no hope or help for it, because it's illusory.
Yeah. But it infuses reality.
Only in the dream of itself.
Exactly.
Yeah. It doesn't actually infuse anything. This isn't infused. The experience of the knower is that something is solid and real. There is nothing solid and real. The experience is not solid and real. It's just having the experience that it is. It's a dream, an illusion.
So there could be a feeling that this meeting is about something,
Oh yeah,
but that's the dream.
that's the dream.
There's only an apparent meeting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
But we can't even say it's apparently
There isn't even a
about
we.
something. Yeah.
We is what me tells myself to not feel so alone. It's just another story. No we, no I, no this.
We need a new pronoun.
Actually, you don't. There's no way to describe what's already everything. So who would know? There's no one that knows.
Such a
Show of hands.
Excuse me?
Show of hands.
Yeah. You get it.
As I say, I'm really terrible.
Maybe in the future there will be apps that can tell you if there's someone home.
If it was a real app, it'd just always say no one home.
Yeah. Well, if there's an experience of me happening or not.
There's still nobody home.
Yeah.
It's an illusion.
But there can be an illusion, a memory of an illusion.
There can't be the memory of an illusion.
There can.
Yeah, of course, yeah, yeah.
So you can't know that it's gone or that there's no me, but there can be a memory of that illusion.
Of the me. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Of seeking.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's an illusion that's attached to the body-mind.
Don't know what you mean by body-mind, but it comes out of a contracted energy in the body. I wouldn't say it had anything to do with the mind.
With the brain?
Well, do you have a brain? I mean, where's your brain? Show me your brain, we'll talk about your brain.
then surely only hi, only me would care if there was a me there.
Yeah, absolutely, totally.
You said for the response, the response is trying to describe the indescribable. Every response is that doing that.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure what you mean by every response, but the response here to the claim that this can be known is it can. It's basically what we're saying here. Was that your...
So it's like the response is always futile in a way. Right.
Well, it's without intention, but it does seem, it can have an effect. I mean, just even understanding the concepts that we're talking about here can be sort of relaxing. And it can be that what's being shared can be heard. It's never heard by the knower, but it can be heard. But it's equally likely to be heard walking around hearing a bird chirp or a branch fall or a horn honk. Because what's being pointed to or suggested is very simple. There's only what arises, and there's nothing missing in that. There's no intrinsic need in what arises to become fulfilled. It's already fulfillment, but not an experiential fulfillment. It's a fulfillment without need. This, sitting on the chair, that's everything. There's nothing lost, there's nothing to find. There's no need to become wise or have certain experiences or know anything. Simply no need for it.
That was really good. It's not an experiential fulfillment.
I love your commentaries.
Because it's always like...
I'm gonna get the best of. Write me an email after with the best of. We've got two at the moment, the circle and non-experiential fulfillment.
Alright. Good. 2-part series. Because the knowing energy, it can't understand, it can never understand what it would be like not to be there.
Well, it's not understandable.
Right.
It's the end of that need to understand is what it is.
So when you say there's fulfillment, then it's like that's going to be an emotional experience of someone.
Totally. Well, everything that's said here, the knower goes looking for it.
Yeah.
Oh, what's that? Oh, right. So there's unknowing. This is all unknowing. How do I know that?
So Jim, the sign outside on the gate that says Jim Newman Non-Duality meeting is quite humorous.
No, it's hilarious. Yeah, I wouldn't put it up there actually. Just so you know, I wouldn't. There are other people out there that think it's important that people find it. They also make videos.
Jim, when you say that the message might be heard but by no one,
Yeah.
what is it that hears? Hearing? I mean,
Sometimes the penny drops, but it never drops for anyone.
So an inscrutable, it's not right, it's an unattainable thing that's sort of circling around. What is it that hears? If it's not me or something, how can it be heard?
Yeah.
So it can't be heard.
Well, I changed the metaphor into the penny dropping, because there's no perception with that. I thought that might satisfy you.
What does it drop to?
Yeah. There's a story. What is it? There was and this is so me. This is so the knower. There was Robert Dulce or something with NLP. He had a book, and I can't remember what the book name was. And sort of on the book they have a story of an old lady. I don't know if it's an old lady. Maybe it was young. Let's say a young man who was. The young man. And they were talking about the universe and everything and how it all rests and everything, and the lady came up and said, the young man came up and said, well, the universe obviously rests on the back of a turtle. And they were like, okay, well, so what does the turtle rest on then? And she goes, no, you're not going to get me there. It's turtles all the way down. And that is so that knowing energy. Where does the knowing begin or end? Oh, no. It's always been there. It's always that way. I'm always real. It's always been there.
It's fascinating that even thoughts are unknowable.
Well, they arise out of unknowing, yeah. They're unknowing thinking.
The words that come up aren't even what's actually being felt.
Yeah, you're playing little games. The fact is that thoughts and words are just emptiness, thinking and wording. It all appears from nothing or as nothing.
And so, like the watcher, the smeller, the hearer, the seer, the speaker, there is no
Yeah.
Okay. Even the doubter. There's doubt.
Yeah.
Lots of doubt.
Yeah.
But no
No.
So there's a space.
No.
All the bands, no doubt.
It's not happening. There's not something that needs to take its place.
Oh, I don't mean space, it's spacious. It's just word, space, coming through.
Walls, bodies, words. Yeah.
And nothing in between.
Nothing in between.
Nothing attached. Just
There's just what arises.
space.
Well, I don't know what you mean by that.
Like nothing.
Yeah, but there's nothing. Everything. There's nothing handing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Space.
Handing.
Yeah.
There's no separation, so there's not space or nothing, and then something. There's only nothing something. No thing thingy.
You could say there's nothing space, could you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I know this is going to get thrown back at me, but how long did this terror feeling last in the case of ex-Jim? Because that's what's happening here. It's this hopelessness, terror, but for like fucking ages.
Yeah.
But it's just there's nothing to be done, and as you would say, well, it's not happening, and it's like, okay, but it's still.
No, this isn't saying it's not happening. Terror is happening, but for no one.
Right.
Yeah.
How long did it last?
Seemed like forever.
No, it's not.
Surely forever is timeless.
No, forever is just a very, very long time. Especially near the end.
Lasting thought patterns. There's a predictability of thought patterns.
Yeah.
What's that? Why is there predictability? Why is there?
There's no why to anything.
Yeah.
There's no answer to why. There's just a predictability. That's no thing appearing as a predictability. You do know how to make God laugh, though, don't you? You tell him your plans.
That's in that which is yeah.
So much for predictability. So it's predictable until it's not. But yeah. But either way, it's just what's arising. There's no meaning behind it. It's not like you could work. What do you call it? Reverse engineer the predictability to some cause, some real cause or some real meaning. It's just not factoring.
Like a sensation of the sort of circle getting tighter or something. But even that's.
But the thing is, it's all meaningless.
Yeah.
It's all completely meaningless. So there's predictability and the circle getting tighter. That's what's happening.
And just I'm sitting here and.
What's that?
I'm sitting here.
Well, you're not, but that's the dream, yeah?
So there's a dream of sitting here.
Yeah. Now, sitting here is not a dream. I am the dream.
Yeah.
Sitting here is an appearance. That there's somebody doing it, or somebody knowing about it is the dream. That's also just what's happening. It's also meaningless.
Still a search for meaning.
Yeah.
Which is also
Yeah, nobody does that. The knowing, the arising of knowing is the arising of apparent or experiential separation, and therefore we experience something missing, and therefore the search for meaning and purpose. For me. It's also just what's happening.
There's a sense here that everything I could possibly say or think is futile.
Yeah. What's that like?
So there is no significance.
No.
So everything bears no significance.
There's not even everything. There's just no thing appearing as everything, being and
being insignificant?
Well, I don't know about being insignificant. It sounds like a thing. There's just no significance. I mean, the point of that is that it's free already.
Not negating anything.
No, well, it's negating significance.
Yeah, that's okay.
Oh.
But the mind, thought, just to get around that insignificance and significance, it has a positive and a negative. It's, just the whole thing of it, just rolling at the moment, just to share it.
Yeah, hey, thanks.
I don't understand this at all,
No, this doesn't either.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
Being.
Yeah, no, none of it. That's definitely not what's being talked about as understanding.
But there is smidgens of
understanding.
Trying to get into, unravel the ball.
Of course, I could hear that so there's no significance. It's like, oh, well, maybe there's a corner I can get into. Yeah, maybe it's in there. Yeah.
It's the snake in me. I just slither through.
Well, it's not a snake in you. There isn't anybody in there. There's just an energy of knowing that's looking for a solution, looking for okayness. Separation isn't okay, and so there's an effort to find okayness. Yeah.
To survive.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, it's afraid of death, so it's trying to avoid death. In that sense, it's looking to survive.
But it feels kind of like a survival.
Yeah.
Here, against loneliness, opposed to aloneness, and so on and so forth. It is surviving, and I see that for many years in myself.
But the message isn't about you.
Any understanding, are there some descriptors you can put on what's happening? There's no differentiation between ugliness and beauty, no differentiation between good and bad, there's no time.
You can't say that. No. That's a differentiation of undifferentiation. Right? Yeah. Yeah. Well, the attempt to position yourself comes out of the experience that you have a position. There isn't a position. The knower is trying to find security and stability through knowing. So it's constantly trying to order everything in its world of knowing. Differentiate. This is everything. Full on. Unknowably, also the experience of living in position is everything.
my cheeks go red, and that's, I'm just like,
They're not your cheeks, but that's what's happening.
yeah, and I want to keep doing it. So
Yeah. Well, you don't,
yeah,
but wanting to do it, it keeps happening.
things do it.
Yeah.
And that's that, and there's and excitement as well.
Yeah. So there's excitement. That's what's happening. Yeah. We're getting somewhere. No, I'm just kidding.
Just don't tell your friends that they are their cheeks. They'll get very freaked out.
There's no reason to stop.
No. There's no reason for anything.
No.
There's just what seems to be happening.
I'm feeling this is too fast for me. It's too quick. I feel like a yo-yo. And all of a sudden we're saying something, and and I get it. It's almost an experience, and then I yo-yo back, and I yo-yo back, and it's like the alphabet, I'm stuck on the ABC.
You do know that this isn't about you, right?
Yeah, I know. I know, but that's what I don't get. That's
No, actually, you just said you did, and I think you're probably right. And what happens is there's sort of a resonance or a glimpse or something, because of the conversation, and then there's a wanting to have it, and that's what you're calling being a yo-yo. And there's nobody doing it, and there's no meaning and purpose in it. There's nothing right or wrong about it. It can be uncomfortable or frustrating, but that's just what's happening.
Sort of a push me, pull you kind of. But just to press the point, I get up to have a cup of tea. I get up, I decide, I have a
You
thought.
don't actually. That's actually not the way it goes.
But it is.
No, it isn't. It's old now, but there's something called The Secret Me or something like that on the internet. It's a BBC documentary about a guy who gets in one of those tubes, electrotomography tubes or whatever, and they look at his brain and see how decisions are made.
Yeah.
And so they ask him to randomly press buttons, and it shows that I think they say there's 2 seconds or something. Like it's quite a long time between when the brain comes out with a decision and the guy comes up and says, I made the decision. There's another one as well where they've got a guy, his brain, he's got his head open, and they're putting tubes, little electrodes in there, and his arm's going up like that. And they put an electrode in, his arm goes up like that. Arm goes, and they go, well, why are you doing that? He said, because I wanted to.
Oh, wow.
You didn't get up and do that. That's the dream. Getting up and doing that apparently happened. Nobody does any of it.
And the thought also just comes by itself.
Everything is by itself. Everything. Even the experience that I'm doing it. There's no distance, there's no separation. There is only non-perspective everything. Even the experience of a perspective is a non-perspective everything.
So the me doesn't ever do anything.
No. Well, in a sense, it as a reaction has an effect on the emotions and the thoughts, which of course can also seem to affect the behaviors. But it's only a reaction. It's not a cause. So a thought will come up and it will take ownership of it and give it energy through that. That can turn it into sort of, these thoughts that go around in your head all the time. or into the emotions, or a ping pong between emotions and feelings, because it's in there trying to, it's actually sorting through, trying to find the solution to itself. That's a story.
Have you seen the Eagle Man? I can't remember what it's called. Somebody Eagle Man. Anyway, he talks. He's a scientist.
David Eagleman.
David Eagleman.
Oh.
And it's quite amazing. And he talks about that there is no self. As the illusion of the self, but it's all scientific. And obviously he is still very much that's it's not coming from this perspective.
Quantum physics are also coming to this. And in the same way, they've still got something really happening. So you've got these antimatter and matter that are popping in distance, and they don't understand how that works. And of course they'll never figure it out because it's not actually at a distance. This is antimatter appearing as matter, nothing being everything. But you can't work that out.
Yeah, that's the thing, you can't work that out.
Yeah.
But that's what the macaroni tries to do, is to work it out.
It's not the macaroni, it's the owner, the knower, that thinks or has the experience that something needs to be worked out. Something isn't right and it has to do something about it.
Okay.
That's a dream.
Okay, basically, a thought comes up, a thought arises, the knower is attracted to that thought and spends time on it, seconds on it.
It takes ownership. That's my thought.
Right, and then it spends more than 7 or 10 seconds, and then it's on that thought, and it expands it into a fantasy or whatever it is.
Okay.
Yeah? The owner, where's the owner?
The owner and the knower.
Yeah.
So that said, it got up and is very convinced that it got up and went over and did that. That's the owner.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
which is the knower.
Yeah.
Which is the secret.
Which exists.
No. Because I wanted to. It doesn't exist. It's a dream.
I'm sucked into the dream, though.
No, you are not sucked into the dream, and you will never escape from the dream. There is no you.
All right.
My money back.
My ego back.
Is the owner is the I thought?
What's that?
Is the owner the owner?
No, it's not a thought. It's not a thought. It's not a thought. No.
So is there knowledge without?
No.
No.
This isn't about knowledge.
What was your question?
Is there knowledge without? And then I just stopped it. I have no idea.
Yes.
That was enough, wasn't it?
I was just thinking of like gravity or like germs or like different things. But that's just, I suppose, all another appearance.
Yeah, totally. Absolutely.
So again, what is that contracted energy is?
What is it? Contracted energy.
How does it work?
In the same way that the table arises. Or the hand. Or a thought.
For no reason, basically.
Well, yeah, for no reason. But it's nothing. It's nothing tabling, or no thing tabling, or emptiness tabling, emptiness contracting. There's no answer to where it comes from, because it doesn't actually come from anywhere. This isn't really happening. That's the dream is it's really happening. It's happening, but it's not real. It's a paradox. It's not a paradox, but the effort to describe it is paradoxical because it can't be described. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to put a ring around or conceptualize that which has no boundaries, no borders, that which is already everything. So there's nowhere to point at it from or to describe it from, because everything that's said or pointed to is it as well. There's nothing outside, there's no separation. That's actually the message. No separation. And within that arises a dream that arises out of a contracted energy in the body that says, I know what this is, and then has the experience of separation, which is an illusion. There is no separation. Whatever appears is everything.
Jim, earlier you said there is no seeing.
Yeah.
You mean because it's not real?
No, because there's no one seeing. Seeing happens, but there's no seer.
But it's not a localized seeing or anything like that.
Well, who would know where seeing happens? And the difficulty is that heard logically means somebody knows there's no localized seeing, and that's not what it is. That's not the way this is. There's just no localized seeing. Which is already the case. The experience of a localized seeing, the experience of knowing or owning, is a dream. It's an illusion.
Why do you talk about this?
I don't.
Why do you seem to talk about this?
There's nobody here.
So what?
Totally. So.
No, I mean, but in regards to my question.
Yeah, you mean now come on?
Yes, even if there's nobody there. I want you to answer my question. How come you talk about it?
There's no reason for this. There's no reason for this. The need for a reason, the need for an explanation, comes out of the insecurity of the knower that feels like something's wrong, and it wants to put it right. It wants to put it in order. It wants to understand what's going on. And it never will, because there's no reason for this. There is no reason for this. It's free. It's already meaningless and purposeless. Doesn't need to be put right. Whatever it feels like, that's just what's happening. Doesn't need a meaning or a reason. It's only the knower that thinks that all the feelings and all the thoughts need to have a meaning and a reason because it's trying to put it in order. Completely unnecessary. And the suggestion is, this isn't really happening. The experience is, it is, and therefore it needs to be put in order. It's not. It's already not.
When you say this is not happening, you mean what by this? You mean
this is not really happening. It's only apparently happening.
And And the ownership is not happening at all.
Well, in the dream it is, but there's nothing to own. There's nothing that could be held on to own. It's only in the dream of the individual that there's something that can be held on to. And all that it can hold on to, its entire existence, which is illusory, is knowing. So it can't own a house or a car or anything else. It has the knowing that belongs to it. It lives in a world of knowing, which is a total dream. Nothing can be held on to.
That's why it's so unsatisfying.
Yeah, absolutely. It's hopeless. Yeah. There is only freedom, yeah.
It feels exactly the opposite.
Excuse
There's
me?
only lack of freedom.
What's that?
It feels exactly the opposite. Lack of freedom. And also fear of it, because freedom.
Fear of?
Fear of freedom.
Yeah. Fear of the loss of control.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
What happens?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you a secret. There already isn't any. Nobody's in control.
There is a sense of it.
Yeah, there's an experience, which seems to be satisfying. But it's got this really long tail of dissatisfaction attached to it. I have something, I know something, that's somehow satisfying. But it requires then a constant confirmation of what you have and know. Have to keep on being certain that you know you're here. I did it. Yeah, I'm doing it. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't matter. It truly is irrelevant. The whole story of me and all that is irrelevant. It's not even really happening. There is only this appearance which is neither real nor unreal. That's all there is. It's ordinary.
The body and the preferences are hard by the knower.
No, body and preferences are just what's happening. The knower will try to impose itself on the body and preferences, trying to make it form a certain concept that it has about how it's going to make this okay.
A bit like owning your phone, and if someone steals your phone and you don't own it anymore, you don't remember the ownership of that. It was something that you could like a claim onto the phone that it was my phone.
Yeah, the claim.
Someone's stolen it, it's now their phone.
Yeah.
That claim's like disappeared. It's more like that context of
Yeah. Except there never was a phone.
There wasn't a phone.
Yeah. And nothing's lost.
Where would it go?
But there's just nothing lost. The loss of me isn't a loss. It's the loss of a dream, but nobody loses it.
Is that there isn't a reason for anything,
Right.
or that those reasons are unknowable?
No, there's no reason.
There's no reason. I wonder how you can know that.
I don't.
Yeah, but
Yeah, but...
if you didn't, you wouldn't say that.
Excuse me?
It sounds like if you didn't know that, you wouldn't say, like you sound certain.
Yeah, it does sound certain, doesn't it? Yeah. And knowable. Yeah. That's because there's something there that knows.
Okay.
So everything obviously is happening for a reason, because it seems to be happening for a reason there. And everybody's choosing to do things or not do things because there's an experience of somebody choosing or not choosing to do things and having ownership of everything. So of course it seems logical that that would be true over here. What's obvious is when there's nobody and no knower, there's nobody there. There never was.
For me, it sounds more sensible to feel that there might.
This is not a sensible message.
Yeah.
It takes no recourse in logic. None.
Yeah, there can be a conversation, really.
No. Well, how could you converse about something that's not a thing? How could you make an object of something that's not objectable? The only way you could talk about something is if it were an object.
I think you can still talk about it, but I think there's
You can't possibly.
different
You can't
standpoints.
possibly.
That's the problem.
You can't say it. You can't. Not one word that I've said today is true. There's a suggestion in it about pointing about something which can't be spoken about, but it has nothing to do with the words. The words aren't irrelevant, but they're definitely not it. They're definitely not the description. It's impossible. How could you describe that which is not an object, not a thing? That's the difficulty for the individual, for the knower. It wants to know what is not objectifiable, which isn't a thing. It wants to know what non-duality is. That's why it's absurd to think you could teach something called non-duality. That would suggest there's a real duality and you could move from duality into non-duality. That's absurd. That's why the suggestion is there is no individual, because there's no real separation. It's an illusion.
When you say it's very ordinary, is it was? I always feel it's quite extraordinary as well. That everything's arising out of nothing.
But that's not an experience. The want of something extraordinary comes out of that sense that this isn't okay. For the individual, the not okayness and its life is very complicated and very important. It has Iraq in it, and hungry children, and all sorts of things going on. The ice caps are melting, and it somehow feels responsible for all of it, or like it should or shouldn't do all. It's just a very, very complicated. So its expectation is the solution to that, all that, would have to be something quite extraordinary.
I was more meaning that the ordinary is extraordinary.
Yeah, and I think that expectation comes out of what I was suggesting.
Okay.
Basically, you're saying exactly what the message is pointing out. For the individual, for the knower, this isn't enough. How much more ordinary could you get sitting in a room?
But in a sense, that's also like, the thing that's it's extraordinary.
Oh, I know.
That's what I'm coming from.
So it's the end of any ulterior motive.
Yeah.
Kind of innocent.
Yeah, absolutely. And intimate.
But not experienced.
No.
I think it's a forgetfulness. Because if it's always there, it's just we forgot it.
No, it's not like that.
You'd say that.
You think I'm a contrarian?
Yeah.
I'm not. No, it's not having to do with forgetting. It's having to do with the experience of it being, I know it, and it's being real. Makes it appear as something it's not.
Makes it appear as something that it's not. Like shame.
Well, okay.
I just need to get my teeth in.
Real. But it appears real. Meaningful, purposeful, as though it matters, consequential.
Motivated.
Intentional. It's not that.
It's not.
There seems to be a connection. When I look at the closest things to me, like my children, and their dad, it's a cycle, that circle, that small circle. If there's a them, there must be a me. And so I notice that that comes back to that small circle. They rise together.
You're trying to work this out. Yeah. That's all simply what's happening. Children arising, they belong to me arising. That relates to the small circle arising. It sounds like I'm onto something arising.
So that little chain, that little trail.
Yeah. Yeah. Arising. Yeah. How are you going to work this out? This. How are you going to work sitting on a chair out?
Can't help but try and work it out there.
No, absolutely.
It's such a compelling story, isn't it? It's like being spellbound.
Oh, very much so.
That's the word that's been rolling around my mind with the silence. Yeah. There's a feeling that I'm spellbound in.
Well, you are the spellboundment.
Yeah.
It has to have something in it. There has to be something.
There's no way that I can't.
There isn't a you. But working it out, working it out will happen as long as there's someone there that thinks they know what it's like to sit on a chair.
Yeah, I can't help it as an I.
But there isn't an I.
It can't be helped.
There isn't an I.
It feels like there is.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, but there isn't one. Just responds. There isn't an I. But that knower, it will always work it out. We'll always be trying to work it out.
Can't not.
Sounds really depressing.
Some people say nihilistic.
It sounds nihilistic.
Yeah, it sounds nihilistic, yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. It's a misunderstanding. Because nihilism would suggest there's a real I there.
Yeah.
That's hopeless.
Yeah, but and since there's no way for me to see that there's no real I, so what I make of it is nihilism.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, but that's not the message.
Yeah, but that's all I can read.
Yeah, well, I mean, you will try to put it into a system that you can understand and judge.
But it's actually a good message.
Not really.
No.
Not really. Because it's not really good for anything. It's not actually a message. I mean, really, if you want to get down to the brass tacks of it, there's nothing being said. This is about nothing. This entire thing is about nothing. There's no meaning, there's nothing behind it, it's not going anywhere, there's no purpose to it. It's just appearing, it's just simply appearing. Like she said, in some ways that can seem extraordinary. It's amazing, but not for anyone. It's simple. It's so simple It can't be known. But this is not a teaching. Teaching always comes from knowing. And the message here is unknowing. They don't meet anywhere.
Also, teaching speaks to an individual.
Totally. Knowing.
Yeah.
Knowing. Knowing, all of knowing is within that world of the knower. And this message is about the end of that knowing.
But I suppose also it's sort of a disbelief that you're not coming from a similar point of view.
Oh, it's completely unbelievable. The message is completely unbelievable.
So maybe that's
Eckhart
how
Tolle is
people-
much more believable.
But maybe that's why people can conflate the two.
Because it's not believable.
Because I can't believe that you're not really coming from where I'm
Yeah,
from.
yeah. No, you can't actually. It's true.
The meeting could have lasted for 10 minutes.
There hasn't been a meeting. I love that. Okay.
So that's my back.
Yeah. Aww.
When there's like a mention with someone like Eckhart Tolle, who I've known less than him, who's not here, who's outside the room, and there's a kind of joint, what appears to be like a joint, disparaging, well, that's not this. What's going on then?
Well, disparaging of something that's ridiculous. That there's duality that will turn into non-duality. That duality is personal. And there's somebody responsible for it and can do something about it. Which is exactly what the individual wants to hear. Because it totally coincides with what it experiences. There's a real duality and I need to do something to get out. And it's going to depend on me. Nobody's in there making a choice to do that or not do that. It's just what happens. As the same pointing out that that's an absurd assumption or assertion that non-duality, that duality will turn into non-duality, or that duality is real and can be overcome through effort into something called non-duality. But as I said at the beginning of the meeting, even a pile of dirt is saying this. There's nothing right or wrong about any of it. There's no better or worse. It just pointed out that the assertion that there's duality that can turn into non-duality is just nonsensical.
How is a pile of water pointed to this?
Well, there's nothing that's not saying this.
Yeah, how?
There's nothing. Well, you can't say how. It just is. It just is. It's just everything. The rocks and stones shall sing my praises, I think it's somewhere in the Bible. And that's just pointing out that absolutely everything is saying what's being suggested here. There is only freedom. There is only wholeness. There is only what appears. This doesn't need to become anything.
They're saying it by just being it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Every step, every cloud, every fence, every floor, every word, everything. Everything is saying exactly the same thing, without pause. This is home.
Just come and read it.
Nobody can ever hear it. It can never be heard by the individual. The individual goes listening for it and thereby misses it. This is it. This what's happening is what's longed for.
Why?
What's that?
Why?
I don't even understand how that makes sense. This is what's long for. Why?
It doesn't feel like it is. How can it be what's long for?
Well, the suggestion is it doesn't feel like anything in particular. It's only the knower that says home should feel like something. And therefore it goes looking for a particular experience, which it says is going to be better than this one. Yeah? It's just what happens. Why?
You just gave me the answer.
Oh, right. But not the why.
No, I didn't mean it. And
Oh, right. Oh,
how you answered
right.
it was what I.
That's the whole energy of knowing, is trying to find to have a better experience. And it's saying this isn't it because it's solid and real and separate, and it's looking for a better experience.
Yeah.
That's what happens. It's a contracted energy right now in the body that's going, what's next? What's next?
So that there can be a better experience. I mean, just the end of experience.
What we're talking about here is the end of experience.
Mm-hmm. Is that better?
Is that better? Not for anybody. Nobody gets anything out of it. Nobody gets anything out of this. This doesn't know anything about what we're talking about. That's why I was sort of hesitant with extraordinary, because it sounds like somebody gets something out of it. This is simply just not about getting anything. This message is actually a message of loss. It's not a loss of anything, it's a loss of an illusion. That there's something really happening, that there's something really wrong. That there's real separation that needs to somehow be overcome. The end of that isn't a gain. There's nothing gotten out of it. In some ways, it doesn't actually change anything. It's the recognition that nothing was ever had or owned. Nothing was ever, could be added.
It's not so clear by the change.
But it's not, because there never was. It was just a dream. The dream arises with the need for something to be added, because there's a sense of something missing or something wrong. And the whole experience is trying to add things, which is impossible. And the end of that is the revelation that there isn't any one, and nothing could be added. There's nothing that ever is held on to. It's impossible to hold on to anything.
Is there a relationship between holding on to something and...
It's only in the dream of the knower that there can be holding on to.
Yeah, oh, sorry, I forgot. My question was like, so what's the relationship between not being able to hold on to anything and adding...
Well, the same thing.
something?
Holding on is trying to add something. The individual lives in the world, the dream world of knowing. And it tries to add things to itself. And that's really just another form of knowing. I know I have something added to myself. That's the whole dream of the individual. I know something. I have more. I can add more to myself. I know an experience. I have an experience. Experience and knowing are sort of the same thing. That's what it's doing. It's trying to fill the hole of something wrong with knowing, or better experience, if you like. It doesn't work because there's nothing that can be held on to. There isn't actually anything. There's no real thing. There's nothing real here. It's an appearance. It's insubstantial. It's unknowing appearing as a room. It doesn't come from anywhere. It's not going anywhere. It's whole and complete, exactly as it appears, without any need to be known or held on to.
Would you say there's a sense of that when the physical body dies? I mean, there's nothing anyone can take with them when they die.
Totally. Well,
It's
death,
so like
there is no such thing as death. I mean, if you think about it, death would mean that there's somebody that knows that they're dead.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
What does that mean? Or that nobody knows that they're dead. Either way, there's not going to be what the individual experiences as death. Death, as a reality, is unknowing. And this is that. Can't be held on to. Knowing is sort of like a solidity. I know something. That's the dream. Nothing is known. Thanks.
Thank you.